What's going on, guys? Ted from Immersion here, and we're back with another Unearthed Arcana review. This is the release that just happened a few hours earlier today, called Traps Revisited. I initially thought that I wasn't going to enjoy this Unearthed Arcana. As I stated in the episode that came out earlier covering last week's Unearthed Arcana, I really only like the character class related stuff. However, I find myself eating my words based on this article, because this really kind of blew me away with the amount of effort they put into. Now, there's a huge section in the Dungeon Master Guide that talks about traps. Also, point of fact, the next Unearthed Arcana won't be until the 13th of March. That may be because of PAX East being next week, so they may be kind of taking time off because some of the Wizards of the Coast folks are going to be at PAX East. So that's 2 weeks from today. But let's talk about this. So much information here, and it makes me more excited to use traps in my game, and I'm going to guarantee you when I run my next homebrew campaign, all of this information is going to be utilized because it's just really good stuff. Sorry. So, first up, they talk about their simple traps and complex traps. Simple traps are probably more what you think about in a traditional D&D trap. A pressure plate with a gas chamber, or, it'll shoot out a dart. And then the complex traps are more, I feel like, what you would think an Indiana Jones situation would be, or a movie-level trap where there's a hall of swinging, scything blades, or the boulder rolling down the tunnel after, that whole situation. So that's what the complex traps are. They even, at some point, say they're sort of similar to a legendary monster in some cases, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So, simple trap. How do they deal with these? First of all, level and threat. They put them into tiers. These are the Adventure League tiers, 1 to 4, 5 to 10, 11 to 16, and 17 to 20, to give you an idea of what is good to throw at what characters of what level. And I like that it goes all the way to 17 to 20, so your super high level characters aren't going to get hit with like a dinky little crossbow trap that's not going to do anything. The trigger is how it's activated, the effect is what happens, and the countermeasures are how it's defeated. And it can be defeated in a variety of ways. It also talks about, later on, different ways to disarm traps. Yes, thieves' tools can be used to disarm certain traps, but if it's a magical trap, perhaps an Arcana check is used to defeat it. If it's, a pillar that comes out and smashes into the wall, maybe thieves' tools can't do it, but a really powerful character can make a strength check to hold the wall back, or something to that effect. So you can use strength, which I like the idea of multiple ways of disarming traps. And they also talk about how to build your own. So, running a simple trap. First off, it says, very important, I will tell you this is important no matter what as a dungeon master. Keep count of your players' passive perception checks. This is useful for traps, but also useful for hidden creatures using active stealth checks. So make sure you have an eye on that. If you stop to ask for checks, the players are going to suspect danger, which is true, unless you throw a lot of red herrings where you're like, hey, make me a perception check. Okay. And it's for nothing. It's just to throw them off. But unless you do that often enough to keep them on their toes, keeping track of their passives is a better call. When a trap triggers, apply its effect as in its description. If they discover the trap, be open to adjudicating their ideas for defeating it. The trap's description is a starting point for countermeasures, rather than a complete definition. And then I like this stuff coming up here. Players should be specific on how they're going to defeat the trap. Simply stating they desire to make a check isn't enough. Ask the players where their characters are positioned and what they intend to do to defeat the trap. A player can't just say, I use these tools to disable the trap. That's too murky. The player instead should describe something like, I use my thieves' tools to examine the lock and attempt to disable the poison needle inside it. The last thing you want is confusion over where the characters are located if the trap activates. As a default, overcoming a simple trap offers no experience point reward. If the characters uncover the trap and avoid or disable it, their reward is dodging a threatening element of the dungeon. If they stumble into it, they must cope with the consequences. Which is nice to talk about them actually adding in experience points for defeating traps. In older editions, that would be like they would always do that, and I personally would always do that. I haven't really messed with that too much in 5th edition. I've done something similar to that, or triggering the trap cuts off route of escape, damages a magic item or a mundane item, and them not saving the trap causes them to not get access to it. So here are some examples, and there's actually a fairly substantial and variety of simple traps. So, bear trap. Standard bear trap, levels 1 to 4, dangerous threat, and it goes dangerous and deadly, and I think it also has moderate, but trigger, this is a typical bear trap. Character steps on the bear trap. The trap makes an attack against the triggering creature. The trap has a +8 bonus and deals 1d10 piercing damage on a hit. The attack can't gain advantage or disadvantage. A creature hit by the trap has its speed reduced to 0. It can't move until it breaks free of the trap with a successful DC 15 strength check. Strength check, not athletics check, made by it or another creature. Countermeasures, a DC 10 perception check reveals the trap. A DC 10 dexterity check made with Thieves' Tools disables it. I'm not going to go through every single trap because you kind of get the point, but I'll go over a couple. So crossbow trap is next on the list for 1 to 4. Creature that walks through the tripwire. Tripwire, it specifically says kobolds like these kind of traps. Trap makes 2 attacks against the triggering creature. Each has a +8 bonus, deals a d10 piercing damage. DC 15 perception check reveals it. A DC 15 dex check with Thieves' Tools disables the tripwire, but a check result of 5 or less triggers the trap. And I like that. Several of these have, if it fails by a certain amount, it triggers the trap. Falling Gate, Fiery Blast, a net, a Pit Trap, Poison Needle. Let's go with Scything Blade. This is, excuse me, the next level up. Deadly Blade sweeps down across the chamber. When the lever is pulled, the trap activates. When a medium or larger creature in a 5-foot wide and 20-foot long area must make a DC 15 Dex saving throw or take 46 slashing damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. The lever isn't hidden. A DC 15 investigation check reveals scrape marks and blood stains in the trap's area of effect. A DC 15 check made with Thieves' Tools disables the lever. And then lastly, we have the Sleep of the Ages, which is a level 11 to 16 trap. A pressure plate unleashes a spell that sends intruders into a deep slumber. Stepping on the pressure plate triggers the trap. When activated, this trap casts a sleep spell centered on the location using a 9th level slot. It's a sleep spell, so no countermeasures for this, really. A DC 20 perception check reveals the pressure plate. A DC 20 Arcana check made within 5 feet of the pressure plate disables the trap, but a check result of 10 or less triggers it. A successful Dispel Magic cast on the pressure plate destroys the trap. A couple of different options, which again I was saying. So now we have a section on designing simple traps. So purpose, what is it, why is it there, what does it do? And it kind of gives you a couple of ideas. Alarm lets people, the inhabitants of the dungeon, know that people are there. Delay is designed to delay the progress of the party. Restrain is there to trap them, whether that's a net. Pit Trap could be a delay or a restrain, depending on the situation. And Slay is designed to kill them. Level and lethality. Again, the traps are divided into the 4 different tiers. To calibrate a trap's strength, pick whether it is moderate, dangerous, or deadly. There's some stuff coming up we'll talk about. Consult the tables to determine the DC and the damage severity. And if it's a spell, what the spell level is. So trap saves and DCs. Moderate, dangerous, deadly, 10, 15, 20 on the check or the save DC, and the attack that it gets to make, +5, +8, or +12. And here's the damage severity, so you can see at level 1, a deadly trap would do 4d10. Or for levels, first levels through 4th level, yes, I would agree, 4d10 trap, especially at first level, is going to just probably instantly kill these creatures. But you can see at 17 to 20, we're looking at, for a deadly trap, 24d10 damage. And here's the spell level. Now, to do a deadly trap for a 17th to 20th level character, it's a 9th level spell plus a 5th level spell. So then it talks about some triggers. Pressure plate, when stepped on, that activates. A tripwire that when springs or is broken. A doorknob that activates when turned the wrong way. A door or chest that activates when it's opened. And then it kind of talks about how a wisdom perception check, if simply trying to spotting it reveals its nature. Other traps require careful inspection using an investigation check to notice. The DC of the check, regardless of its type, depends on the skill and care taken to conceal the trap. Most traps require DC 20 check to spot, but a poorly made or hastily built trap has a DC of 15. Exceptionally devious pitfalls might have a DC of 25. And it gives you a little table here, or a little blurb about perception and investigation and the difference in using both with traps. So, contrary to I feel like what a lot of DMs, myself included, have used, is that investigation is to detect traps. That's not necessarily true. Perception could reveal a tripwire. Doesn't tell you what happens when it breaks, but it shows you that it's there. An investigation check reveals scuff marks and wear patterns show that the doorknob can turn both ways, but most often is turned clockwise. Effects, what the effect of the trap is, and then the way to disarm it. And here's what I was talking about the multiple ways. Once you determine how a trap can be disarmed, pick the appropriate ability and skill. In most cases, a dexterity check made with thieves' tools, a strength athletics check, or an intelligence arcana check can overcome the trap. Dex with thieves' tools, mechanical traps, disabling a tripwire or pressure plate, disassemble a poison needle mechanism, stop up a valve, thieves' tools. Strength, again, break a scythe blade, hold back a collapsing roof in place, tear a net apart, and then arcana checks for magical, to disable magical traps. Finally, decide if there are any drawbacks to a failed attempt to disable the trap, like we saw earlier. If they fail by a certain amount, or if the check is, not high enough, it goes off. Placing simple traps. Context is everything with simple traps. A log trap that knocks a character aside, it sucks in the forest, but it's a lot more devastating if it crushes them into a wall. Using choke points, narrow passages as ways to stick traps to make them be most effective. Again, think about who created the trap. If this is a bunch of kobolds, they're expert trapsmiths. Keep that in mind. If this is something hastily thrown together in the forest, what are they going to have at their disposal? If this is a crazy epic dungeon that was created by, a lich or something crazy that spent a lot of time doing this, these are going to be well-placed traps in places that make sense for traps to be. They're not going to have the swinging pendulum blade in the giant open hallway where they can easily dodge out of the way. They're going to have it in a tight corridor or where a door, wooden or stone slabs slide down and the area is filled with poison gas. Things that make sense. Treasure chests, doors to vaults, other barriers, alarm traps, since they pose no physical threat, are ideal for areas that are used by a dungeon's denizens. If a stumbling goblin activates an alarm trap, there's no real harm done. The alarm sounds, the guards arrive, they berate the goblin and say, hey, don't do that. Things like that. It's alright if players correctly deduce a trap's presence. That means your trap was placed logically and the players are engaged in the game. Alright, complex traps. So these are kind of the crazy ones. They're designed so that they can be disarmed only if you're willing to risk the trap's effects to do so. For example, in a hallway filled with scything blades, the mechanism that controls them is on the opposite side. Level and threat and trigger happen exactly as they were, but there's additional elements added here, like initiative. Slow trap takes place at initiative 10, a fast trap, initiative 20, or very fast, initiative 20 and 10. So this is, this is a constant presence, a constant detriment to the party. It's happening almost like a mini lair action, as it were. Active elements. On a trap's turn, this activates. Dynamic elements. Sorry. Many complex traps feature a changing trait. The trap's description, we'll talk about those in a little bit. Constant elements, things that are constantly happening. And countermeasures, ways to disable them. And then running a complex trap. When activated, the trap's active elements act on either initiative 20 or 10, or both. On initiative count, after all characters with that same initiative have acted, the trap activates. After resolving the effects of the trap's active elements, check if its dynamic elements come into play. A magical aura might do more damage the longer it's active, and things like that. So, complex trap. Path of Blades, levels 1 to 4, this is a dangerous threat. And it talks about the hallways are 20 feet wide, 160 feet long. It's mostly clear. After 80 feet, the floor is broken and cracked and is difficult terrain until the 130-foot mark. This trap activates as a non-undead creature enters the hallway, and it remains active while any non-undead creatures are within it. The trap activates on initiative 10 and initiative 20. The Path of Blades includes a set of whirling blades along the first 80 feet of the trap, crushing pillars that slam down from the ceiling to the floor before rising back up to the ceiling for the next 50 feet, and a Rune of Fear is its final effect in the final 30 feet. Whirling Blades happens on initiative 20. The blades attack each creature in the first 80 feet of the hallway with a +5 bonus to attack, dealing 2d10 slashing damage on a hit. Crushing Pillars on initiative 10. Each creature 130 feet down the hallway must make a DC 15 Dex saving throw, attack, or take 2d10 bludgeoning damage, being knocked prone on a failed save or half as much on a successful save. And then the Rune of Fear on initiative 10. If you're in the final 30 feet, make a Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is frightened of the rune, and the creature must immediately use its reaction to move its speed away from the end of the corridor. This is a nasty trap. Back through everything that just happened. Frightened creature can't move closer to the end of the hallway until it's used an action to succeed on a Wisdom saving throw, which ends the frightened effect. So you're going to go run back through, and it's a full action to try to break it. Dynamic element, Blades Miss. The blades move with increasing speed, slowing only when they hit a target. Each time the blades miss an attack, increase their damage by a d6 and their attack bonus by +2. Because again, when it clips somebody, the blade's momentum stops, but if it misses, it's just picking up speed, so it's doing additional damage, and it's easier to hit because it's moving faster. The Rune's defense, tampering with the Rune of Fear to disable the trap, increases the trap's power. Each successful check increases the damage of the blades and crushing pillars by 1d10 and increases the Rune save by 5. Constant elements, the Whirling Blades and the Rune of Fear affect creatures that end their turn in the element's areas. So they also get affected if they end their turn there. Whirling Blades, any creature ending its turn in the blade's area is targeted by an attack of +5 for d10 damage and the Rune of Fear. Any creature ending its turn within 30 feet of the far end of the corridor must make a saving throw against the rune's effect. Each of the trap's elements has their own countermeasure. The Whirling Blades, characters can smash the blades, damage their components, or study their pattern to avoid them. The blades are disabled if the total attack bonus from attacks and attempts to disable them reaches a -8. Investigation check. This check reveals the blade's pattern, DC 15. As an action, the creature can see the blades and attempt this check. Success imposes disadvantage on the blade's attacks against the creature while it isn't incapacitated. Attack. A creature in the area can ready an attack against the blade. Blades have AC 15 and 15 HP. Destroying a blade reduces its attack by 2. Again, when we get to -8, the blade is destroyed. And a dex check with Thieves' Tools, DC 15. Creatures can use Thieves' Tools in the area attacked by the blade to foil their mechanism. Successful check reduces the blade's attack by 2. There's no effective countermeasure against the Crushing Pillars because they are just piles of stone. And the Rune of Fear, a DC 15 Arcana check to disrupt the rune. Each check requires an action. A creature must be at the end of the hallway to attempt the check, and only one creature can work on this task at once. Once the creature attempts a check, no other creature can make the same check until the end of the next creature's turn. Alternatively, Dispel Magic. 3 successful castings of Dispel Magic targeting the rune. That was a lot, and that's a pretty nasty trap for a levels 1 to 4 character, but it's pretty solid. I'm a big fan. Next up, we're going to do the Sphere of Crushing Doom, and then I'm probably going to skip ahead because these are pretty lengthy. So, the Jester's Tomb is located at the end of a 10-foot wide, 150-foot long hallway that runs north to south on a sharp slope. This is your Indiana Jones trap. Trigger. The trap activates as soon as the lid of the Jester's coffin is open. A magical portal opens at the northern end of the hallway and disgorges a giant steel sphere which hurtles down the slope. When it reaches the bottom of the slope, a second portal briefly appears and teleports the sphere back to the top and begins it again. This trap activates on initiative 10, but see the dynamic effect. Active effects. The Sphere of Crushing Doom. As a spherical boulder that almost fills the hallway, each creature in the hallway must make a DC 20 strength saving throw when the sphere activates. On a failed save, a creature takes 22 4d10 bludgeoning damage and is knocked prone. On a successful save, they take half the damage and are knocked prone. Objects that block the sphere, such as a conjured wall, take maximum damage from the impact. Dynamic element. Speed kills. After its turn, the boulder gains speed, represented by its damage increasing by 2d10. While its damage is 10d10 or greater, it acts on both initiative 10 and 20, because again, the boulder's picking up speed as it rolls down the hill. There are a few ways it can be stopped. Stop the sphere. Stopping the sphere is the easiest way to disrupt it. A wall of force can stop it easily, and any object that has enough hit points to absorb the damage from the sphere without being destroyed can stop it. Disrupt the portals. A DC 20 Arcana check. Put but the process of analyzing a portal to disrupt it takes time. The creature must first use an action to examine the set of runes. Each successful check reduces the sphere's damage by 2d10. Alternatively, a set of runes can be dispelled by 3 successful castings of Dispel Magic, DC 19, targeting any of the runes in the set. If the southern portal is destroyed, the sphere slams into the wall and comes to a halt. It blocks the door to the tomb, but the characters can escape. And then they have the Poison Tempest, which is for 11 to 16, which again we're going to skip over just to save some time. And then stuff on designing complex traps. What's the purpose? Does the trap protect treasure? Does it impede? Does it only target certain intruders, like we saw the one that only targeted living creatures? Level and lethality. Again, map. A complex trap has multiple parts, typically relying on character's position to resolve it. It might be easier if you design a map to show how the trap works, especially if it's a hallway, like that first trap where it has blades, pillars, and then the fear rune. And again, it also said consider terrain, because remember that one trap where the pillars were slamming down, that pillar section was difficult terrain, so the characters were only moving at half movement. Active elements. Let's see. To make your trap logically consistent, make sure the elements you design can activate each round. For instance, crossbows rigged to fire need a mechanism to reload them. In terms of lethality, it's better to have multiple dangerous effects in a trap than a single deadly one. As a rule of thumb, build your trap with 2 dangerous trap elements and 1 moderate one. And then it talks here about the constant elements, things you're going to want to have constantly happening. Avoid filling the entire encounter area with constant elements. Part of the puzzle of a complex trap lies in figuring out which areas are safe. And then again, the dynamic elements here. The poison gas in the room grows thicker as more of it floods the chamber, dealing more damage. The necrotic aura on an idol of Demogorgon produces random effects each time it triggers its active effect, and so on. Again, there's lots of information here about how dynamic elements will affect your trap. But again, this is really cool, unique stuff that we haven't really seen. And I'm surprised at the length of this article and the amount of detail they go into these complex traps, and the fact that we get a bunch of information on them. Here's some more stuff on triggers. The initiative on the slow and fast, and the very fast traps. And then here it also has a little blurb about complex traps and legendary monsters. A complex trap is like a legendary monster in some ways. It has several tricks it can use on its turn. It remains a threat throughout the round, not just on its turn. The trap's active elements are like legendary creatures' normal actions, and its constant elements are equivalent to legendary actions. While a legendary creature can move, improvise actions, and so forth, a trap is a specific script with potential to to make a complex trap stale. That's where dynamic elements come in. They keep the players on their toes and make dealing with a complex trap feel more challenging, involving the situation. So, defeating complex traps. It's never defeated with a single check. Instead, each check foils some part of it or progression within the trap. To start with, look at your map and consider where the characters must be located to attempt an action to foil part of the trap. Most trap designers count on the trap to protect itself. A fighter might be able to break a whirling blade, but moving close enough to attack it requires giving the blade a chance to strike. Consider how the trap can be overcome. Obvious candidates are some sort of checks used to defeat simple traps, but use your understanding that the trap's design provides other options as well. Leave room for improvisation, because people are always going to come up with crazy ideas that you didn't think of. Aim at requiring 3 successful checks or actions to shut down one part of the trap. The first success might reduce the trap's component's save DC or attack bonus by 4. The second might have it, and then so on. For traps that don't attack, allow each check to reduce the element's effectiveness by 1/3. A lock's DC is reduced, or a gate opens wide enough to allow a small creature to squeeze through. Takes time to work on a trap. 3 characters can't make checks right after one another and disarm it in 6 seconds. They would get in each other's way and disrupt their efforts. Once a character succeeds on a check, another character can attempt the same check to disable the trap element. Can't do it until the end of the successful character's next turn. Not all the character's options must be focused on stopping a trap. Think of what characters might do to mitigate or avoid the trap's effect. This approach is a good way to make characters who might be ill-suited to disarm a trap feel useful. An investigation check might reveal the pattern of a swinging blade. The swinging blade follows, giving the disadvantage on attack rolls until the character's next turn. A character with the shield can stand in front of the dart trap, making themselves a target each time other characters trigger it. things like that. It doesn't actually look like it has any information here on complex traps about providing experience for disabling these traps, which is interesting because they made a point to say that defeating a simple trap doesn't provide experience points. But this one, they didn't really give us an idea that you should get experience for defeating complex traps. But I'm curious to see what you guys think. I'm like I said, contrary to what I just said earlier in a video I released earlier today, I love this Unearthed Arcana article. These traps are amazing. The concept behind them and the logic they show on how to design these is great. I love it. I'm going to be implementing it in my games. I'd like to see more of this. I'd like to just see more options for traps in the future. And this is pretty cool because it's not... this is one of those rare instances where it's not a character class, but for most games, aside from Adventure League stuff, because they're predetermined, and most pre-written campaigns, because the DCs and the traps and things are already installed, this can be employed in any game, and you really can't argue too much about it, because traps are traps. So this is kind of cool that it's not like you don't have to get the... As the DM, you can kind of employ these, and you don't have to worry about, like, do I allow this this class, or do I allow this race? This is kind of just something you can choose to completely ignore or incorporate parts as you see fit. I don't know. Like I said, I really like this article. So, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this Unearthed Arcana review on Traps Revisited. Be on the lookout for a bunch more videos coming this week, and I'll see you next time.